What's going on, everyone? Welcome to episode 66 of the Bros Talking Soccer podcast. My name is Dave Knittel, and I'm here with my brothers Christian and Matt to discuss stories from around the soccer world. Matthew, say hello.
Hello.
That's what Matt looks like, and he's clearly excited about City's win earlier today. Christian, say hello.
Hello, everyone who wants to know. I'm wearing Budweiser shirt, Bud Light hat, really representing Bud, Anheuser-Busch. You know, I'm just that guy today, and just here living life. I hope all of you are doing the same.
Any reason why you're budded out?
I put the Budweiser shirt on because it was the first shirt that was in my drawer, so I grabbed that one.
I know that
and
game.
then everyone else was wearing hats, and I was like, I can't be the only one not wearing a hat. So the first hat that I found, it might be the only hat that I have, is this one. So I put it on.
Is that how you get dressed every day? Just the first things you find, or you just put on?
I feel like it was a trick question. I don't know if I want to answer that.
Okay. All right, listeners. Well, you didn't come here to hear us banter back and forth about our clothing choices.
Yes, I did.
I think we're ready to jump right in to the podcast this week, as we've been good about that. God damn it! All right, let's get it out of the way before we get going here. All right, ready?
I'm ready. You ready?
I'm ready. Matt,
Yeah,
you ready? Okay.
I'm ready.
He was looking at the ceiling, so I wasn't sure.
No, I'm looking at Scoob.
Okay. What's going on, everyone? Welcome to episode 66 of the Bros Talking Soccer podcast. My name is Dave Knittel, and I'm here with my brothers Christian and Matt to discuss stories from around the soccer world. Christian, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well, Dave. Liverpool, unfortunately, aren't in second anymore because United won today, but they look very, very good. So I'm feeling confident in their play, and it's been a good week for Liverpool fans. And I just watched that Cup final, Carabao, however you pronounce it, Carabao Cup final. It was a horrendous game. Arsenal looked lost, and I think Wenger's really at risk right now, unless he wins the Europa League.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, Arsenal do have the second best attack in the league, right, Matt?
Yeah, they just have to go against the best defense.
There you go. Matt, how are you doing today?
Doing great, Dave. I got to see City win this morning. Got the first trophy of the season. So that feels good. We're out of the FA Cup, but we already got some domestic silverware, so that's good. And I'm feeling great. State Patties weekend.
Oh, yeah.
How are you doing?
Happy birthday, by the way, Matt.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, Matt.
Before Dave says something, because we actually asked him this week, so I don't even want to hear him. So I'm going to interrupt. Yeah, happy birthday. Hope State Patties was fun, and you didn't get into too much trouble.
No, not at all.
Just a little bit. Just a little bit is fine.
That's good. Yeah. So Matt, happy birthday. It was a couple days ago, and for those who don't know, State Patties is like a special drinking holiday up at Penn State where all three of us went, and so it's a lot of fun and. Just a grand old time, and Matt seemed to have a good time this weekend. I'm doing well, guys. Thank you guys for asking. Just having a good weekend. We did our own little, we got a couple of little bottles of wine yesterday, and we did a little wine tasting here, Kristen and I, and just had a swell evening. And so, watch some soccer. I'm ready for Christian to come out and visit next week.
I had a phone call with Dave last night around 11 our time, 8 his time, and you could tell he had a little bit to drink. He kept mentioning the fact that he drank a little bit more than I guess he's used to because he's such an old man now.
Yep. That's what happens when you turn 30. All right, Christian, do you have our trivia 30. Question for this week?
Okay, so Real Madrid scored their 6,000th goal in the league this past weekend. Do you guys know who has scored the most goals of all the top 5 leagues in Europe?
Okay. I have a guess. So does it have to be in the top division?
Yes.
Okay. All right. I have a guess. Matt, listeners, we will think that over. And
I think I know what your guess is too, and I'm pretty sure it's wrong. So I'm excited.
At the end, we will reveal our guesses. Christian will reveal the answer, and it'll just be a grand old time. Before we get into our topic sticks this week, wanted to plug a couple quick things. I gotta slow down. First off, we have partnered with StadiumScene.com. Stadium Scene is a travel guide for sports fans. So if you're going to a stadium, if you're attending a match or a game in person, specifically in the United States, you want to check out stadiumscene.com. They have reviews and recommendations for you, what bars, restaurants, other things to do kind of around the stadium you're going to. So definitely go check them out. Additionally, on stadiumscene.tv, they've partnered with content creators like us to offer content. So we offer some soccer content. There's some other people in there offering soccer content, but then they have baseball, football, American football, hockey, basketball, all that other kind of stuff. So definitely go check them out. Stadiumscene.com or stadiumscene.tv. The other things I wanted to give quick plugs for are some of my projects. So I am the founder of Fan Futsal, which is a simplified fantasy soccer website. The site is back up and running. We have tournaments going on. We have games. MLS is starting this upcoming weekend. And with Fan Futsal, we make it simpler for all soccer fans to play. So we have you select clubs instead of individual players, and our scoring is simplified. So go check out Fan Futsal, FANFUTSAL.com. Couple quick last plugs. So I have a YouTube channel specifically making videos about the history, culture, and philosophy of the beautiful game at the Soccer Tavern. So check that out. We are releasing videos about the history of soccer clubs in England right now. So this upcoming week, Chelsea and Crystal Palace will be out. And with that, let's get to our topics for this week. I think I've rambled on enough here. So first topic we wanted to talk about, there have been Gianni Infantino, the current FIFA president, came out recently with a speech, or at least an interview, where he was talking about proposed transfer market reforms. And he didn't really release a ton of specifics, but he basically said that things need to change as far as the transfer market is concerned. Christian, what are your thoughts on what Infantino has said? Are there specific things that you want to see implemented as far as the transfer market is concerned? So what are your thoughts?
Absolutely, there has to be some sort of change. I like that he referenced the Premier League's decision to close the transfer window before the season. I know he was talking about having just July as the transfer window and not even opening it at all in August. I don't know if that's really enough time. Yeah, it might be, because people are preparing during the season for the transfer dealings. People are always talking to other clubs. People are talking to other players. But I do think that you should have up to maybe the day before the season starts to make as many moves as you want to make. I like the fact that he proposed that January transfer window still would exist, because I do think that during the middle of the season, you need to be able to make changes, especially with teams in relegation fights or on the verge of top four. But I 1,000% am agreeing with most of what he is offering. I like the salary cap that he referenced in American sports. I don't know if they're actually going to be able to implement that, but it was an interesting take. And in the long run, I don't think that is a big deal, as big of a deal as the transfer fees that are being circulated through all the markets, and the agent fees that he referenced, that they're over $500 million in agent fees. Just blew my mind. I never, ever would have guessed that, and that definitely needs to change.
Yeah, I agreed there. And so I want to bring that in before I give my thoughts here. Matt, what are your thoughts on Infantino's, comments here?
Yeah, so I think something does need to be done about the market and how much money's been going into it. Like the last couple of years, I would say it's double what it was 4 or 5 years ago, which is crazy. Just the inflation with it. I think, but in the article, I don't think anything he proposed or anything that's said in that article is saying how they would get that number down, which is why, I agree with the things, but I don't see how the things that were proposed were gonna decrease the market value of these players.
Yeah, he didn't really have any concrete sort of takes. It was more just hey, we need to figure this out. The one thing that I will say, and Christian brought up, is the agent fees. I always assumed that there was a standard agent fee. I thought it was something like 10%, but from the article, it seems like agents can kind of negotiate whatever fees they want. And the whole Mino Raiola situation with Paul Pogba last year, he made, I think, something like 40 million pounds or euros from that transfer just himself, because, he had negotiated fees. I think something definitely needs to be done on that front. As far as wages are concerned and salary caps, I don't know how they can actually implement that, or putting caps on transfer fees. I don't know about that. I did also like his suggestion at having FIFA, or at least a central body, enforce the training compensation and solidarity payments. So for anyone who may not know, training compensation and solidarity payments are basically for players that have been developed in a youth system. So say at a smaller club and they went on to greater things, the club that played a part in a player's development still is entitled to monetary compensation and parts of transfer fees in the future. And that's a law and a rule from FIFA right now. But what happens is there's nobody really enforcing that. And so a lot of these smaller clubs, like, they don't have a ton of power and they're at the mercy of whenever these big clubs actually want to pay them. And so I did like that proposal from him. Christian, anything else you wanted to add?
I really do like that he wants to take a portion of every transfer fee and apply it to the teams that created the player. That is a really important step. I think that a lot of the
Doesn't that already
teams.
happen?
What?
That already happens.
What?
Training
Since
compensation
when?
since forever. Like,
It sounds
remember?
like that's not enforced in any way.
No, it's not enforced. I mean, technically it is enforced because a lower team can sue and go through the legal obligations and get that money. But no, it is a rule that every time a transfer happens, a portion of that transfer goes to the club that helped, train that player. That's the training compensation.
I thought that was only for players who were under a certain age. I didn't realize that was everyone.
No, but remember when Xabi Alonso, I think it was Xabi Alonso, transferred a couple seasons ago, and one of his small clubs. You know what? Actually, that may have been a. It was Pedro. It was Pedro when Pedro transferred from Barcelona to Chelsea. His first club that he was ever at got, like, I don't know, something like €1 million or something. I don't know exactly what the fee was, but it helped basically save them.
But I thought that was more of like a club has the right to put that in the clause. I didn't think that was a standardized rule that had to be applied.
Okay, I think it is, but let's not get hung up too much on that.
Okay, yeah, I just think that it is huge that especially teams that are producing quality players who aren't going to be making a lot of money in the limelight, having the star players, having a lot of income from just being on television or competing against the highest teams or making it far in competitions. If they're able to produce quality players and sell them on, and then they're being sold on and they're kind of climbing the ladder, they should be compensated for that because they did help create that player. And I think that is a huge part of what the game should be about.
Yeah, Matt, I know you said that Infantino didn't really have any, specifics. Do you have any thoughts on specific things that you would want to see changed, or anything that you think could be implemented?
Well, I think like the whole agent fees thing, like the clubs are the ones that let that get out of hand because they're like the ones negotiating it. So I think like if you just, I mean, I know it's pretty crazy right now. Like we were saying, like Mino Raiola, so I say it.
Mino Raiola, I think is how you pronounce it.
Mino Raiola. Like his agent fees are absurd. So I think like you just have to maybe like, I'm just trying to think like you don't
Have a
pay them
standard
as
fee.
much. Yeah. Or like you just refuse to work with like certain players. Like then certain players would be off the market because like say like you're not gonna want to transfer for Paul Pogba if his wages and his agent fees are that expensive.
Yeah, but then there's going to be other clubs that are willing to pay that. And so it's a power struggle, right? And so these days I think the agents have a ton of power and players have more power than they've ever had, historically speaking. And so I don't know if you can just say, "Oh, we're not going to, we're going to take this hardline stance," because there's going to be other clubs that are willing to pay, and then you're going to miss out on the best talent, right?
Yeah. I'm thinking about like if there's a salary cap in place too. And like then like you can only get players of certain wages
Okay.
and
So
like
so
the
in line
agent.
with the salary
Yeah.
cap. Okay. Okay. All right. Fair enough. Christian, anything else you want to add?
Nope.
All right, let's keep this thing moving. Sticking kind of over in Europe, but on the FIFA sort of thing. Sepp Blatter, former FIFA president, who was ousted as a part of the U.S. justice probe into FIFA and arresting basically everyone except for Sepp Blatter. He recently came out and endorsed Morocco for the 2026 World Cup over the USA, Mexico, Canada bid. Matt, what were your thoughts on Blatter coming out and publicly endorsing Morocco?
Okay. Well, my first question would be like, what does his endorsement matter at this point if he's not involved?
Yeah, it
Okay.
does. So
Okay.
I mean, it's just people who still value his opinion. So yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because like the article made it seem like the Morocco bid doesn't make a lot of sense considering like how they don't really have facilities for it. They haven't really put together like a ref plan. It said like it seems like more of a long shot and it seems kind of random that he just doesn't want. And he said like let's bring it back to Africa. And Africa had a World Cup in 2010 and like North America hasn't had one since like 94. So
Yeah.
I think it was just like kind of like a outrageous statement that he made.
Yeah, well, I don't think it was
Outrageous.
random because of basically the U.S. is why he's no longer FIFA president. So I think that
Yeah.
played a huge role. But Christian, what are your thoughts here?
Somebody's bitter about his investigation that happened. Yeah, his whole organization he was running got probed by the United States. So he does not like that, and of course he's going to say this.
Yeah,
Of course, like I
he
don't.
doesn't like getting probed. Yep, yep.
No,
He does
people
not
don't
like.
usually
Yeah,
like that. So I'm not surprised at what he's saying, but he's
yep.
just sounds very bitter. I don't. It doesn't make a lot of sense that he's saying we should return it to Africa, since Africa had it more recently than North America did. That doesn't really make any sense. He just doesn't want to see the United States or yeah, probably just the United States. He doesn't mind if Mexico or Canada had it. He just is very upset with the whole investigation the FBI went through. But they were caught doing a bunch of scandalous shit. So I really don't feel bad for him at all. And people really should not be valuing his opinion that highly. And I don't think they are.
Yeah, I mean, this is just classic, bitterness. He's clearly still pissed off that the U.S. As you know, I can understand why he's pissed off, but I don't. The U.S. was literally just following the law, and FIFA was breaking it, and he lives in this delusional sort of world where he's still innocent and was wrongly ousted and all of that. And so, I mean, like you said, I mean, I don't know who still values his opinion. I know the article that we're going to link to in the show notes, and they're underneath the video, is from the Washington Post, which is a U.S. Newspaper. So it's obviously going to have a slight sort of slant towards the U.S. But even still, they made the point that if anything, him endorsing the Morocco bid probably hurts the Morocco bid even more because nobody wants to be associated with him. So if anything, maybe it's a positive. Matt, anything else you want to add?
Yeah, at first I didn't put together that the whole FBI thing with what's it called? FIFA happened, and I forgot like Sepp Blatter was like the focal point of that, and yeah, it makes sense why he's mad at US right now.
Okay, yeah. Christian, anything else you want to add?
I just don't trust this guy, and I agree with you that Morocco probably are upset that he's endorsing them, and they're probably going to just drop their bid at this point.
I mean, honestly, I don't even know if Morocco is the whole Morocco bid. Just doesn't make any sense. It seems like they don't want it. They're not putting much effort into it. Like,
isn't it a dry country too? How are you going to have a World Cup with no alcohol? Sounds crazy.
Is it 2022 the same thing with Qatar? Isn't Qatar a dry country?
Oh my God, you're gonna have two in a row? That sounds horrible. No.
Yeah. Well, I think that there was a carve out. You're all Bud Lighted out, but I think there was a carve out because FIFA is sponsored by alcohol companies, and so I think there was a carve out in Qatar. There's going to be designated areas where alcohol can be consumed in public or something like that. But yeah, I don't know about Morocco, but that's just a little fun fact for you. All right, so with that brings us to the end of our first segment. We're going to hear a little bit of music, and you're going to hear us back in your ears right after that. Talk to you soon. All right. Cool. We good to keep this thing rolling along?
Yep.
All right, I think we have our episode name.
Yeah, people don't like to get probed.
Yeah. He doesn't like getting probed. All right, Manchester United. All right, go to Christian first.
Okay.
Welcome back, everyone, to our second segment. Manchester United, let's talk about them. So I know we all watched their Champions League match this past week against Sevilla, and we're all just bored out of our mind with that second half performance, and really throughout the match they weren't great. So a Twitter user, which we will link to in the podcast show notes, James Ducker, said, quote, United may well get through to the Champions League quarterfinal, but they feel like a team going backwards, not forwards at the moment. There's just not a great deal to like. It's joyless football. It's not ultra defensive. It's just a strange sort of inertia and nothingness. Just all very underwhelming, end quote. So, Christian, what are your thoughts on this quote? I know you're not the biggest United fan, but, is this just typical Jose Mourinho tactics, or is this an overreaction? Is this something else? What are your thoughts?
I honestly could not have put what he said into better words. I think that is exactly what is happening at United. It is the most boring soccer I have ever watched in my life. That second half against Sevilla was trash. The game today against Chelsea was, going into that game, I already knew, this is going to hurt my soul because these are the two worst teams on the planet. But it was just, it's just not fun to watch them play. It really isn't. You take the joy out of watching the game. And for a team like United, who are historical for being entertaining, it's the theater of dreams. That's what they call their home stadium, Old Trafford, for those of you who don't know what that is. But that is unacceptable. I just do not like it. And I don't think this is typical Mourinho. I think it's worse than ever right now. It really isn't. They don't look good defensively. Yeah, they might not be conceding goals. They have the best goalie, even though today, he made an error. But irregardless, he's world class and up there with Neuer, not quite, but up there.
And Ter Stegen.
And Ter Stegen. I like Ter Stegen, so I don't complain with that. But
no, I love Ter Stegen. I like Ter Stegen better than Neuer. That's what my joke is. Remember?
Well, you're dumb.
Remember,
yeah,
guys?
I remember.
I remember. All right. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
I just do. They sucked the life out of soccer. Really, you watch them and you are bored. It is not anything fun that they provide. Today they scored a legitimate team goal for their first goal against Chelsea. That was the first time I've seen them do that all season, and I watch a significant number of their games.
Yeah, no, you bring up good points. Matt, your thoughts here on United. Is this typical Jose? Is this something different? Is this an overreaction?
Yeah, I think this is not typical Jose. Like, I think even at Madrid and even Chelsea, I think I was still entertained when he came out defensive. He had players that were in a position to entertain. Like, I don't like it when he has Martial on the bench. I think Martial is the most creative player they potentially have on that team. I think he's so good, and he has him on the bench so often. And it's he just wants defensive players. And I don't think he's really done that. He always had Ronaldo in Madrid. He always had Hazard at Chelsea. Players to be what I think Martial could be like. And I just don't see it with his tactics. I don't think it's normal for him. And I think United are playing so boring now.
Yeah, and I think he does still have talented players. I mean, they signed Alexis Sanchez, who's good and individual and can do things. He's not quite Hazard, but he can do a lot of similar things that Hazard can do. Like you said, Martial is good. Paul Pogba is somebody who can do a bunch of amazing things. And so I don't know. I mean, it's got to be coming from Jose. I do think that this is typical Jose, but it's just an ultra concentrated form of Jose. It's him at his most core, where he is just so anti-establishment, anti-football or anti-soccer, where these other teams are all about possession and high press and attacking and all of that, and he's just doubling down on his tactics. I mean, in fairness to him, United is still in second. So everybody is, at the end of the day, is soccer an entertainment? Is it about results? And I think it should be a combination of both, but it's tough to fault him when United is in second in one of the most competitive, Premier Leagues in a long time. So, I do want to just throw that point out there because, I mean, it is valid,
But for a team that have spent the money he has, they should be competing with City. They're way too far back right now. And it's because of their style. They aren't playing to win a lot of the times. It almost looks like they're playing to draw or to sneak results 1-0, which, yes, he's been notorious for doing in the past, but this team isn't capable of doing that. I do not trust their defense. It does not look good. Their midfield is a disaster. Going forward, they're probably above average, but they're not world class like you expect Manchester United to be. But I'll give my friend Brendan a plug here. He texted me today during the game, And this sums up my feelings towards United as well. He says, I loathe Lingard. His face is the problem. It's the most punchable face I've seen since Ronaldo. So I think that's a perfect explanation of how everyone feels watching United.
All right, Matt. Anything else you want to throw in for United, Matt?
Yeah, I just think like Mourinho spent, he spent the money, but I just don't think the players have been good like purchases. Like I think he at the time they like went for what they were worth, but they turned out to just not be as good as people thought. Like Lukaku, like he's good. I don't think he's $100 million good.
I think in today's market he is, and I mean so today was the first match that he actually kind of lived up to his billing. He played very well today. He got a goal and an assist, and usually he doesn't perform. The stereotype or whatever that he's been cornered into is he doesn't perform against the big clubs, and so he did do very, very well today. I only saw the second half, in fairness, but I thought he did play well, and I don't know if that's necessarily a fault of him. So I don't know. I just it just doesn't make sense to me because all of these players are so talented, and it is just Jose's tactics. Like I think that if you took this team and if you swapped Pep and Jose, I think likely United is in front of City in the table right now. Now it's closer. They're not way out ahead, but I think that is the case because Jose just his style and everything like that. Maybe that might be a ridiculous thing now as I play that in my head, but because United's back line is just god awful. I can't believe that is their actual back line that they start consistently.
Well, I mean, Pep made like Otamendi was like you thought like Otamendi was horrible. Everyone thought that he was horrible before Pep. And like
I'm still
I guess
not the biggest Otamendi fan, but continue.
Well,
yeah,
Otamendi got a
him.
January upgrade in FIFA, so everyone else thinks he's good.
Yeah, and he's still winning with him. That's what I'm saying. Like he could probably win with United's back line. I don't think it's like an outrageous thing to say.
Yeah, very, very true. So I don't know. We'll continue to follow this. I mean, it's going to be interesting because I do think United gets through against Sevilla, but I can't see them advancing. No matter who they play in the quarterfinals of the Champions League. So
you can't see them beating Shakhtar or Roma.
No, not if they continue to play the way that they do. They have the talent too, but the way that they're playing, I don't know if they do get through. So let's keep talking. Stick in the Premier League, but switch over to Tottenham. And so a recent article, again, we'll link to it from the times.co.uk, came out and said basically Alderweireld. Yeah, however the hell you pronounce his name. Tottenham center back from the Netherlands, I believe, right?
Belgium.
No, he's Belgian. He's Belgian.
Yeah. So basically, he's demanding 150,000 pounds per week, and that would be outside of the typical range that Tottenham pays players, and so they're likely going to have to sell him if they don't agree to that. So, Matt, what are your thoughts on Tottenham really sticking hard to their wage structure? Is this going to hurt them in the long run? Is this smart business sense? What are your thoughts?
Well, I think in the sport, like you always have your price for a player, and I think if you're not, like Real Madrid, Barcelona, PSG, you're not going to be able to keep all your players, and I think Tottenham knows that. And like in the sport, like there's just so much turnover in players, and it is a business. So like I don't think it's unexpected when this happens, but like the teams, I think it's just like part of the game.
Fair enough, Christian. Your thoughts on this situation?
I think Spurs would be moronic to let him leave. He is a very, very, very good center back. And Liverpool did this for a long time. I remember they did not want to break their wage structure. It was held for up until recent years. And it was broken with Luis Suarez, I remember. But it was like you do what you have to do to keep your best players. And if they want to stay competitive and in this top four hunt, this top six that exists in England – they want to keep Harry Kane, if they want to keep Dele Alli long term, Christian Eriksen, these players are really, really good and are going to be pursued by top clubs, and they're going to be offered that amount of money by top clubs. If Spurs want to be competitive, I understand they have their business, but they're going to lose their top assets if they don't step up to the plate and offer that money.
But what about because there's an inherent risk there that if Tottenham starts paying these players and potentially overpaying, and they don't end up performing, whether it's for complacency, once a player, not questioning anybody's professionalism, but sometimes when a player gets paid, they lose their incentive to keep working hard, right? Not saying that everybody does, but sometimes that happens. And say they start paying, these players, and their wage structure gets out of whack, and then all of a sudden they finish 6th or 7th in the Premier League, and then that could theoretically set them up for a really bad situation financially, where then they could spiral even further down. It's only recently has Tottenham been like a really kind of top 4 challenging team every year. And I think a big part of that has been because they've stuck to this wage structure and they've built sustainable success. And so if you break that, I think you're taking on risk. Christian?
That's one way to look at it. But from the opposite side of the same argument, you can say players are not going to perform because they're not getting paid enough and they feel like they should be moving to a different club and the club's not letting them leave. So you're running that risk either way. It's a game of what do you think is best? Do you want to keep your players? Do you want to stick to your wage structure and hopefully find younger talent and keep providing?
That's a really good point. That you bring up a good point, and I don't think it's not just sticking to the wage structure just because we should stick to the wage structure. Like, there is a business reason behind it, and there's an economical thing. Matt, thoughts?
Yeah, I think Tottenham have done this before with Modric, Bale, and they still managed to overcome like them. And Bale was up there with one of the best in the world at the time when he was at Tottenham. So I think when he was at Tottenham, he was incredible. He was the best player in the Premier League.
I'm saying, and then he was sold.
Yeah, exactly, and they overcame that. So I think they're still competing for top 4, even.
But they haven't won a single title still, because they aren't keeping those players.
Yeah, but I'm saying success is relative. Like, if they break, either if they try to pay more people and it doesn't work out, then they just lost a lot of money, and then the club they'll have to sell a lot of players in the future if they're not winning with the people they're paying a lot.
Exactly. There's, everybody has a place in the world soccer market, and sometimes you just need to know where you are. So yes, they haven't won, Christian, with any of these players, but I think they're closer to winning now than they were, over the previous 5 or 10 years before that. And so they've been able to achieve that through keeping their wage structure, getting players who are maybe more up and coming, and investing that money maybe more wisely than retaining some of the players. And so if you can sell on Alderweireld and get a huge transfer fee and reinvest that into another Davinson Sanchez or somebody like that and hit on them, or maybe you invested in 2 or 3 Davinson Sanchez's and maybe 1 or 2 hits, that's how you build I think something. And I just don't think they're
I understand, but I feel like they're always building because of that. They're never going to reach the top. You're always starting over. And that's the problem with Liverpool. That's been the problem with Arsenal and why they're not winning.
Absolutely. So yeah, I mean, yeah, there's nothing really to. So yeah, we're all kind of coming at it from different perspectives, and I don't think there's a right answer. And
I think I'm right.
Okay, well, I think I'm right. So yeah, so we'll be following it, and you can judge for yourself, listeners. But I think it'll be really interesting to see how all this shakes out with their new stadium opening next year, and what is it, 61,000, or they're trying to get more seats. I think it's up to 62,000 now, which is, what is that, the 2nd or 3rd largest stadium in the Premier League then?
Behind Wembley, it's the 3rd largest in England.
Well, yeah, but Wembley doesn't count. So
okay, well, so 2nd largest in the Premier
League. behind United. So they're going to get a ton of money coming in from gate receipts for tickets, and if they can use that, continue to build their corporate sponsorship. They're somewhat new on the scene as far as global brand is concerned for the Premier League, and their sponsorship just isn't anywhere near someone like United or something like that. But they are building, and so if you can keep growing and building that, then I think there will come a time where you can start to break that wage structure. I just don't think it's yet. Okay. We'll see what happens, though. With that lively discussion, that was a pretty good discussion, I got to say. That was pretty good, guys. That brings us to the end of our 2nd segment. You're going to hear a little bit more music, and we'll talk to you in our 3rd segment shortly. That was pretty good.
Good job, guys. That was great.
Yeah.
That was so good.
Well, you guys are doing great.
Pat myself real quick.
Yeah, there you go. What's going on there, Christian? You just changing things up? Oh, man.
Let's turn the light on.
Okay. All right, last topic. We're going to talk a lot of MLS with the season coming up, okay?
The treble is still on.
City?
Yeah.
The
Yes, it
shitty
is.
treble.
Shitty.
The shitty city treble.
Oh, cheap travel.
Oh, shitty
Oh, I
treble.
remember.
Okay. Welcome back, everyone, to our third segment. Going to talk some MLS now with the season starting within a week. This is going to be MLS heavy section. So with that said, less than a week until MLS starts, and a Reddit user posted that the league has still not released their roster rules for the upcoming season. So we'll link to that. Christian, what do you make of MLS just still not releasing their rules less than a week before the season starts?
That's absurd. How can you possibly not release any type of guideline, rule, instruction to the teams in the league?
Well, I'm sure that yeah. So I'm certain that they have some rules and guidelines. I don't think there's
but
nothing.
like any specific rule that you need to know before a season starts, you need to know now because the season starts in 5 days.
Yeah, and it may have been released to the teams. It's just not public. So I do just want to throw those caveats, and it may not have been released to the teams. I have a hard time believing that, but I just wanted to throw those caveats in. I'm sorry. Continue your thought.
Okay, well that just changed everything that I was going to say, but okay. So I think that the fans don't really need to know right now about what the structure is of the rosters. That's at the end of the day not anything that they have to worry about, really.
What?
But yeah,
I
it would
disagree.
be nice to. Yeah, I understand it would be nice to know, and there are fans who really do want to know all the rules of MLS, and they want to know what's happening. What is my team doing? But no, yeah, I understand, Dave. You're the best fan ever. So
No, that's not what I'm saying.
Cool.
I'm a fan who does want to know those things, and I'm incredibly interested in all that.
That's because you're the best and just the greatest. So I think that I think it is a little bit ridiculous that they haven't released it to public knowledge. But at the end of the day, I don't think it is their real responsibility to release that this early. I think they can release it whenever they feel like it because it's not going to impact the teams. If the teams already know, we aren't going to be able to impact anything that's happening. So what is it? It doesn't matter to them. And yeah, we want to know things, but they don't care. And I understand that that's not what we want to feel. We want to feel like they do care, but they don't. And that's
but they
what
should.
It is.
Okay, all right. So I disagree on most of what you said, but Matt, let me get your thoughts here. What are your thoughts here on MLS kind of withholding roster information?
Yeah, I'm kind of with Christian. Like, I don't think it's that big of a deal. Like, I mean, you're gonna figure it out. I assume when the season starts. Like, what's driving you crazy for the next 10 days that you just can't look at the roster?
I just need to know.
I don't know. Sorry, continue.
Thirst for knowledge.
Yeah, I'm saying it's not like we need to know immediately if the teams know.
So all of us love reading about teams, reading about soccer, and all of that. And this is just another piece of the puzzle where, like, if I don't know, because MLS is so weird and it's not really comparable to European leagues. So I can't even try to put it in the context of European leagues. But in MLS, there's so many rules regarding rosters, regarding, what money can be spent and what money can be used for where, restrictions on how much you pay certain players, restrictions on international slots. And all of those things are things that fans care about. Maybe not every fan, but a lot of fans do care about it. And I think it's absurd for the league not to be on top of those things and incorporating fans into that. Like, I don't know what the downside is to releasing rules to fans. Like, all that would happen then is fans can properly judge how their front offices are doing within the confines of the rules. Like, there's no sort of downside to having fans understand what the rules are from a MLS competition perspective or anything like that. Do you guys disagree? I guess you guys just don't view this as a big deal.
I mean, I think it is important that we do know the rules of the game and the rules of the league, but I don't think that we're going to be impacting anything, so they can release it whenever they deem fit.
I disagree, but okay. Matt, anything else you want to add?
No, I pretty much agree with what Christian just said.
I don't understand how you could release it just whenever they feel like. So if they released it in June, you guys just still wouldn't.
Well, no, I would be pretty upset with that, but like, I don't know, a reasonable amount of time.
Well, what's a reasonable amount of time then? Because it's preseason.
When the season starts, like, shortly after the season starts.
But so let me put it in the context of American football. Say the Eagles, preseason
Woo!
started for
Super
the
Bowl
Eagles.
champs.
Yeah. Say the Eagles preseason started, their first game is a week from now. But you don't know if the roster is going to be 53 or 55 people. You don't know maybe what the salary cap is. And these aren't, it's not one for one situation again, because MLS has a lot of complex rules. But you wouldn't be confused or upset that you didn't know what the roster could actually look like a week before the season, Matt?
No, I don't, because I think like roster spots like 53 to 55 in football, like they're either going to be like practice swing players or players that aren't, making like the biggest impacts on the team.
Okay. All
And
right.
they, and this would never happen in football.
I understand it would never happen in football, which is why it's a big deal. It's ridiculous that the league doesn't care about this. And yeah, it's not comparing rosters 53 through 55, because in MLS it's not that. You could have legitimate impact players who could be starters, who could be impacting the league, but you don't know maybe the rules exactly. And so, that's where things stand. So all right, clearly we're on two different wavelengths there. But speaking of MLS and the season coming up, Matt, MLS season starts next weekend, and it seems like Toronto, Seattle, Atlanta, NYCFC, and maybe the LA teams are really starting to spend a lot more than a lot of other clubs. Are they going to start pulling away from the rest of the league? MLS has always kind of prided itself on some of the parity. Do you think that we really start to see, different tiers, Matt?
Yeah, I think that's what we're gonna see. I think money definitely leads to success, and these teams spending is definitely going to separate them a little bit. I don't think it's going to be like Europe yet, where it's like the teams don't really have a shot, and like Leicester was like a crazy, one in what was it, like
5,000.
9,000, 5,000
5,000.
shot of winning. Like I don't think that's going to be happening in the MLS, because I don't think like anyone's odds are that low. Like I think like even like the Union this year, like I've been watching like the preseason, they're doing real well in preseason. Like I don't understand why they can't make the playoffs and then just challenge those teams, because like anything can happen in the playoffs. It's like an elimination game, so like that's probably more likely to happen in the MLS than I would say like Europe. But I think the teams that are spending money are more likely to win.
Well said. Christian, your thoughts here?
I think we're on the verge of what Europe has. I don't think it's going to ever get that far, but I think the super clubs are going to start to appear. The teams with the money, teams willing to spend on top players, on their academies, just to build up their resume, they're going to pull away from everybody else. And it's going to be tough, because as a Union fan, it's going to be tough because it seems like we aren't willing to spend money, or we spend it in the wrong areas, at least from what it looks like in our points of view. I know you may differ on that opinion. I think we spend it incorrectly. So I
Where do you want
think
it
that
spent this year?
where do I want to spend it?
Yeah.
On star quality.
Oh,
Always.
okay.
I don't
Oh,
care.
okay. All right. All
Yeah.
right. Fine.
I think that Atlanta is going to be the best attack in the league, up there with Toronto. I think those two teams in the East are going to pull away from everybody else. I think it's going to be far away, those two competing. And I think that in the West, the LA teams really do look like they're building something. I mean, the Galaxy were horrendous last year, but they're going to be better this year. They are one of the super clubs that already exist, in my opinion, in MLS. And I think we're going to see, not it to the extent of like a top four you see in England, or a top six. We're going to see more in waves of big clubs all coming up, and then they might slide down a little bit, but different from the way MLS is now, because it's almost as if every year is brand new right now. I think it's going to be, those teams are still in the playoff spots always, but they might not be the top. And we're just going to see a rotation of the rest pretty much competing for those last three playoff spots. It's going to be rough to watch. And I hope that it doesn't end up becoming that way, because MLS has been fun to watch because of how quickly things turn over, and you can get excited. Maybe my team can win this year. You won't be able to feel that, I don't think, in the next year or two, or maybe 5 years down the road.
So I still think you will, because of what Matt brought up. So I agree with both of what you guys
Well,
are
yeah, I
saying.
think, sorry, just to go off what you just said, I think that MLS, because of the playoff structure, you do have that option always, because it is one-off games or two-leg games. But No team other than those top teams are ever going to win the Shield.
Okay, potentially. I mean, I still think that you will get some, stratification, and like you guys are saying, I think you will get top contenders who are kind of there every year, year in, year out, and they may slide down a little bit. I still think that MLS does have fine margins where, rosters aren't incredibly strong 1 through 20, 28, I think is the roster rules, or technically I think you can go up to 31 with homegrowns or
I thought we
whatever.
didn't know the roster rules.
Well, you don't, but as of last year, that's what it was. But so you're never going to have, or I shouldn't say never, but right now you're not going to have the depth that you would have overseas and things like that. And so a couple injuries here or there for Atlanta today. I just saw Jordan Morris tore his ACL, so he's out 6 to 9 months. So these clubs still are susceptible to injuries and things like that. And so, yes, at the start of the season, you will have these teams that are likely going to be favorites, but I don't think that other clubs can't win the Shield, and I don't think other clubs can't win MLS Cup. Like if the Union all of a sudden they're the highest investors in their academy. Them and the Galaxy spend the most on their academies. If the Union all of a sudden turn into the Ajax of MLS just out of nowhere and are turning out 18, 19-year-olds, every year that are incredibly talented and competitive and all of that, I mean, that could be a legit strategy that could see them become, title contenders. I don't know if it's going to happen, but that is a potential,
I mean, when Ajax plays against the best teams, though, they never can compete because they're always selling their best players. That's the problem.
Europe, but that's in Europe. Domestically, they can still compete, right? They still win titles, and we're talking about
this is going to be completely different because you're going to be playing against the best in MLS.
They play
which
against
is almost like Europe. No, I'm saying Netherlands is not the same level. We're going to be almost like playing in Europe at that point.
Yeah, fair. Okay, so I can understand that from a certain perspective, but I also understand that if the Union are able to attract and develop the best domestic-based players, if the Union had their act together and MLS had their act together, and all of a sudden Pulisic is with the Union instead of Borussia Dortmund, he wouldn't be the player that he is. So I'm not saying that, but I'm saying if the Union are able to develop and retain those type of players, I mean the U.S. has the potential to produce world-class players. We're seeing that now with Pulisic. McKennie's making inroads. Schalke just signed another American. They have, 5 or 6 at this point. Sargent just signed with Werder Bremen. Like, we have players that can play overseas, and if those players are developed and stay here, I think that the league could, teams can compete and don't necessarily have to spend.
But the problem with that, you're comparing them to Ajax, who always sells. That's the problem.
Yeah, but
you're saying we would sell them on. Is that not what you were saying?
Yes, I'm saying that.
So they wouldn't be able to compete at the level.
You're saying that Ajax doesn't compete. I'm saying that Ajax still does compete. Yeah, Ajax isn't competing with Barcelona and Real Madrid, but Ajax wins their domestic league and gets into Europe, and a lot of times goes far in the Europa League. So yeah, they're not competing at the highest level, but I think that MLS isn't going to be, you're not going to see a Barcelona. So I think that you can be an Ajax and compete and do well in MLS. That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
Okay. Matt, anything else you want to add before our last topic?
No.
Okay. Another sort of roster situation in MLS. 442 came out with an article recently about MLS's roster rule of targeted allocation money, which is used to sign players making between $500,000 and I believe $1 million annually. And it's basically an incentive to develop kind of not your top end tier, which is what domestic players in MLS, not domestic, designated players in MLS are for. The targeted allocation money is basically to build out your upper middle part of your roster. And so what the article was arguing is that these players that are coming in are likely going to be foreigners, and it may hurt the domestic players produced by MLS, so American and Canadian players. Christian, any thoughts? Do you have concerns about that? Is it MLS's even prerogative or responsibility to develop domestic players, or are they just responsible for developing, the best players that they can? What are your thoughts?
That is a tough question because we have that debate all the time, whether it is the league's responsibility or the club's responsibility to create the players. I think on some level, but not its most importance, I think that the MLS has a responsibility to produce American talent.
And
I don't think that should be their... I don't think that should be their main focus. But I meant not just Canada, I meant everybody. I think that the clubs should be responsible for producing players, and they can choose whoever they want to be producing. They can pick whatever type of talent they want to bring in. And yeah, it may hurt domestic, but I don't think that it will, because there's a huge pool that we can draw from in the United States of great young athletes, and you never know what you could turn anyone into really at this level. And if you get them into youth academies, if you get them playing at younger ages and developing and growing with a team that has a style, has a real group togetherness, and it can go a long way. And I don't think it's MLS's responsibility or prerogative to really say you can't do that with your money. But I think increasing the TAM is only going to help the quality of the players.
Matt, your thoughts on TAM and MLS's responsibility and domestic players and all that?
Yeah, I'm not so worried about the domestic players because I think the league is still growing at this point. So I want to see the league getting the best players possible. Like in the future, I would be more worried about domestic players, but I think more important right now is getting the league to the quality we need it to be, and those players will push the domestic players who come up and they're playing against better quality. Like it's not like you're just gonna magically get better playing against people not the best. Like you have to play against the best to be the best. So I think this is good move for the MLS right now, but in the future I'd be more worried about domestic players.
Absolutely. Couldn't have said it better. I mean, in order to get better, you need to play against better players. And so with bringing these players in, the young players are going to be competing for minutes, and training against them in practice. Additionally, these players are going to have a ton of experience, and hopefully some of them will be leaders and will be mentors to younger players, and they will have stories, or they will have habits that young players can see and develop and grow into to make them better. So I am not concerned about this in any way yet. Now, if the league becomes like the Premier League, where what do they have? I think 30% or 35% of minutes are given to English-based players in the Premier League, that would start to be a concern. And I know MLS is right around the 50% mark. So I don't think we want to get to that. But like Matt was saying, I think bringing in these more talented players and having young MLS players, American and Canadians competing, I think can only be good. Christian, any thoughts you want to add in closing?
I just agree with you guys. I really don't have anything else to add.
Okay, fair enough. Matt, anything you want to add on this topic or any other topics?
Hey, I just agree with you guys.
Yeah. Good podcast this week. The only thing I wanted to add is that the American courts recently came out and denied NASL's preliminary injunction for Division II status. So for those who may not be following, NASL is the second division league in America. We actually have two. Don't even get us started on that whole thing. But they recently were relegated to Division III status by U.S. Soccer, and the NASL sued U.S. Soccer to try to get Division II status for the upcoming season. That was shot down, and so the league is in flux. We may be folding and maybe going bankrupt and all of that. And so this wasn't good news to hear, because I don't want any soccer leagues or any clubs folding in America, but things are not looking good for the league. Christian, do you want to recap our trivia question, and we'll give our guesses?
Yeah, the trivia question was, who out of the top 5 leagues in Europe has scored the most goals? I'll give you that they are about to hit 7,000.
Okay, Matt, do you want to give your guess?
Okay, so I know it's not Real Madrid.
Yes, very good.
Deductive reasoning. Good stuff, Matt.
Yeah. I'm going to go with the AC Milan.
Okay, that's a good one. So
it broke up. I couldn't.
AC Milan. He said AC Milan.
Okay, that's a good guess.
That's a good one. So I was going to say Everton, because they have spent the most seasons in the top flight in history, but Christian sort of gave me a smug smile before and thought would be my guess. So I'm going to change it up and say Barcelona, although I could see it being Juve as well.
Correct answer is Everton.
Fuck. Damn it. I knew that was right. God damn it. They spent 150 seasons in the top flight.
Oh, wow.
You threw me off there.
So unfortunate.
So why did you think that was going to be my guess?
I did.
Yeah. Oh, you bastard. All right, listeners. Hopefully you had more confidence in your guess than I did there. That brings us to the end of the podcast this week. We will have links to all the stories we discussed in the show notes. So right underneath your podcast, we'll have all of the links. We'll also tweet them out from our Twitter handle, which is at BT Soccer Pod. We have if you want to get in contact with us, our email is bros.talking.soccer@gmail.com. We have a website now, brostalkingsoccerpodcast.com. You can read about us, check out past episodes, and a whole lot more on there. We also record this thing live on YouTube, so come hang out with us every Sunday afternoon Eastern Standard Time, and you can watch us live, interact with us, and all of that. With that, thank you all for being here. Christian and Matt, thanks for talking with me this week. Listeners, thank you for being here, and we will talk to you all next week. See you, everyone.
Hey, everyone. Don't forget to drink Bud Light. Budweiser sponsoring us today.
When did you become like the Bud guy? I don't even
all right,
I'm just a Bud.
All right.
Wait, do you guys want to play?
No, we can. All right. See you, YouTubers.